welcome everybody. My name is Kent Gilbert. I'm the president of Support Centers International. Very proud to be a sponsor of this event, along with so many of you who are doing such really good work. We're welcoming those of you who are watching online as well. And as that chair is carrying a cord, you don't want to walk that way. Come right around this way. We're welcoming questions from online, so we've got somebody who will be watching the chat. If you'd like to let us know some questions, that would be great. Come right over here. Yeah. We are today talking about the role of community-based organizations in all of this. We've heard a great deal about that. Let me just tell you a little bit about the hats that I'm wearing. And in addition to having an impressive sounding title, I actually am not a non-reputable pastor from Berea, Kentucky. I pastor a local church, and in addition, I work with the Kentucky Council of Churches. The Kentucky Council of Churches is a coalition of 11 different denominational bodies in 16 different regions across the Commonwealth, representing about 1,100 congregations from everywhere from rural to urban, white to black, rich to poor, all the way across. It's one of the most diverse coalitions like this in the country, and it's also one that has been around the longest. We're having our 75th anniversary this year. So one of the ways that we try to work together is to come together on matters of cooperation. Now, we're by no means exclusive. So you see all these names of churches and things up there, but we work with anybody who works in this field. We work all the way through, and we're trying to help empower local churches to take advantage of the resources, the communications, the expertise, and the knowledge that's happening here. So I'm doing a lot of listening right along with you because I intend to carry this back to my faith communities. One of the things that we've talked about in the Kentucky Council, and one of the reasons I was asked to chair today, is that we know that there are huge impediments to the success of recovery. Right? Nobody in the room is going to be surprised that cost, that access, and that stigma are the big issues. But all the folks who gathered on this panel, my esteemed colleagues, are doing incredible work in community-based organizations, including churches, including faith-based organizations, that address all of these, because all of these are, in fact, the very thing that, certainly in my context, gosh, if only there was a place that was designed to support life and was based on compassionate teaching for people in need, if only there were groups of people who got together weekly to do that, gosh. Wait, I have an idea, right? So faith communities play this important role. Other groups can as well. And creating a societal change around recovery is probably one of the least addressed issues so far, right? We got medical expertise, we got lots of addiction response and treatment options that are growing and we're continuing to learn. But what do you do when you want to have a life afterwards? Everything from what do we do about felonies in job applications? What do we do about, I'd like to have a life, maybe meet a life partner, maybe I'd like to have friends. Where do I do that and how can I do that while maintaining my sobriety? All these things. So what I thought we'd do is I'll let each of us take a few minutes of your time. They can all introduce themselves as we go along, and then we'll also have time for some questions at the end. All right. My first colleague, Alec, will you come with me? And let's see, we got to get your PowerPoint up. You take this, and I'll do what I can with that. Let's see here. I don't know. Hold on, I'll just get our technician. Well, there we go. Yeah.
So yeah, my name is Alec Day. I'm the lead educator at Springs of Life. I'm also the pastor of the home, and all of the staff members at Springs of Life wear many hats. I also do the grocery shopping, so to speak. Our motto at Springs of Life is rescuing men, restoring families, and rebuilding communities. That last part is really the goal, ultimately, because Jellicoe, the place that we operate in, it's in Tennessee, just across the border from Kentucky, is typical of mountain communities in terms of culture, way of life, and history. But it has its own unique flavor, attitude, outlook, and our town has many problems, all too common with Appalachia. Jellicoe's ripe with poverty, isolation, lack of economic opportunity, and resources. Addiction has been stoked by broken homes, poor education, and everything listed and more. So our mission at Springs of Life is to help our residents develop the internal and external resources needed to achieve and maintain recovery from substance misuse, as well as make behavioral changes. So our vision is to lead men who have been captured in addiction to freedom through a Christ-centered, long-term residential program. And many of the men that come into our program actually don't have insurance or they can't afford treatment, and so all of our services are free. But the way that we operate is we have 2 social enterprises, which helps residents receive recovery and treatment services. In return for those services, residents participate in our what we call Recovery to Work program. The program is comprised of commercial and residential lawn care services and a cleaning crew service. And basically, it helps develop work ethics, basic life skills, skills for future employment, while also giving some contribution back to Springs of Life and help pay their way through the program. So one person who, there we go. But yeah, this is our location, mission, vision, our population, as I was talking about. I forgot to click the slide. So yeah, we don't ask for tuition or financial compensation from the residents to receive services. So one person that has benefited from this program, which they work 20 to 30 hours a week and also do classes when they're not working and things like that, is Justin Hester. He's a former cop who lost his job due to addiction. He entered Springs of Life in the summer of 2019 in desperate need of change after many years of struggle. The struggle cost him his career, but also isolated him from his family and his own daughter. I believe that he found what he was looking for in our recovery program and took part in every aspect of our work, of Recovery to Work program. After graduation, he became a paid intern and was instrumental in developing the Recovery to Work program even further as a cleaning crew leader. After training his replacement, he became our operations manager, overseeing all parts of Springs of Life. He has become an instrumental member of our ministry and one of my best friends. We have spent many hours outside of work fellowshipping with each other, discussing our hopes and dreams, and he's become one of my brothers in Christ. I could not imagine Springs of Life without him. While in our program, working for Springs of Life, he's been able to restore his relationships with his family and young daughter. And I've loved watching him become a father I knew he was capable of being when he was in the program. I think Justin is the best example of our mission and our vision. So what Justin received while in our program are what we call capital, recovery capital. And there's personal, human, social, and community recovery capital. I'm not going to go into extreme detail on any of these, but mainly it's the first one is their basic needs are met, shelter, transportation, financial resources, clothing, that kind of thing. Human capital is their abilities, their skills, their knowledge. Social is relates to intimate relationships, friends, family, relationships with people, supportive partners. And last of all is the community. So the community's attitudes, policies, and resources available to them. So this is what makes up the majority of our work, is providing the men these different recovery capitals in their lives. And we do that through a number of different things: safe housing, medical and dental care, health support systems, peer support, food, transportation, drug testing, Bible classes, recovery classes, so on and so forth. While we work to help our residents achieve these resources, we know we can't do it all alone. And without a healthy community at large, it's nearly impossible. So our recovery ministry is only an aspect of an even greater work of community restoration. So Springs of Life is just one ministry that Springs of Life Foundation is involved in. Years ago, we visited a ministry in Lynch, Kentucky, and we were told that we would start a coffee shop. And at the time, that seemed crazy to us because here we are trying to save men caught in addiction. Why would in the world would we start a coffee shop? And how would we even go about doing it? We were and still are a very small group of staff. But not long after, out of nowhere, a member of our community gifted us a building downtown. The building has a storefront and a living space above. We thought, okay, God, I guess you want us to start a coffee shop. Ever since then, we've been working to restore the building upstairs and downstairs through charitable donations and church support. Soon it will be the location of Solid Grounds, a coffee shop. We hope that the coffee shop will be a safe place for our community to not only receive a good cup of coffee, but a space for events, recovery activities, a number of different things. I mean, some of those people who come into the coffee shop, they're going to receive a complimentary cup of coffee or water as they wait for their counseling appointment upstairs. So upstairs, which is called Jesse's Place, it's going to be the site of a clinical counseling services, which will support our men and the community at large. Both businesses will be up and running shortly, within a few months. Lastly, I believe a healthy community requires a healthy church body. So, of committed men and women. So we've partnered with local church plant to foster a growing body of believers who have the same vision of community restoration as us, to be a source of change for our community at large. And then last of all, I just got a really short story. At Springs of Life, we don't shy away from our love of Jesus. We radically embrace his love for the least and broken members of our community. We accept people where they are with compassion and love, with the hope that they accept Jesus as their salvation and the transformation only he can provide. We believe God is doing something in Jellicoe, perhaps the least of all cities in East Tennessee, if not the most broken. When I was first employed at Springs of Life in 2017, I didn't know who Cliff Branham, the director, was. After working with Cliff for many years, I found out through my father, who he actually grew up in Jellicoe. Cliff's father and my adoptive grandfather used to run around together in Jellicoe. Cliff's father owned a local bar just outside of town, and my grandfather partnered with him to sell drugs out of the bar. So it occurred to me why God directed me to work in my father's hometown. A Day and a Branham partnered together to sell what contributed to the brokenness of Jellicoe. But God sought fit to use their descendants to begin to put the pieces back together. And if God willing, transform Jellicoe into the city I believe it can be. Thank you.
Like I say, we'll have a chance for questions afterwards, but I want to make sure that all of our panel have a chance to present first. So, Terry, I think we'll turn it over to you right now and introduce yourself. Yeah, I think it might be easier for the people at home if you come this way. Okay. And that way you can have the camera front and center.
My name's Terry Tipton. I'm part of a mission in Lynch, Kentucky. Kind of a small world because the ministry that I'm a part of, we have that coffee shop that he paid a visit to. So that's kind of neat to hear. We're multifaceted as far as the ministry goes. We've operated under two directives for many years. Help people share Jesus, however God gives us the resources to do that. And over the process of now 22 years, God has given us a building that we use as a ministry coffee shop. We have a mission retreat center that was the old coal mine hospital in Lynch. Now church groups from all over the country. We've had them as far away as Washington State, Rhode Island, even folks from other countries who come, they'll stay in that old retreat center and then do mission work out into the community there. The recovery side of that has really only developed in the last few years. And kind of how I kind of have to tell a story of how that came to being. A lot of the missionaries there involved with Maridzo, we wear a lot of hats. And when my wife and I began at that ministry, we were the directors of that retreat center that I mentioned. 5 months after that, I was asked to pastor the local C3 church. And that's what I did before I moved to Eastern Kentucky. I have been I'll now have been in ministry about 35 years. And when I took on that church, my prayer to the Lord was, Lord, would you teach me how to change the culture?
Mhm.
And in an impoverished area where coal mines were continuing to move out, employment's moving out, you had a lot of people who were stuck and a lot of people who were homeless. And obviously that helps fester, I guess you could say, a drug culture as well. And that was my prayer. A month later, I get a call from a women's rehab center that's there in Benham, which is the next little town over, and was asked to start, would I be willing to come and teach Bible study to the girls there? So I said yes. And kind of my mentality was, God, whatever you lay in front of me, I'm going to say yes to. And then a couple months after that, the leadership at the Lydia's house there asked me, they said it would be great if a local church would host a Celebrate Recovery program that we could bus our girls to. We got to looking and praying about it. And at that moment, it's different now, but at that moment, there wasn't any type of Christian-based addiction recovery ministry in the county. So we were like, God's all over this, we're going to do it. So we trained our people, we launched it. And it just seems like one little pebble thrown in the water after that. It has just grown what we do as a ministry. Again, our foundation with Maridzo is a number of various types of ministries. We're actually spread out over 4 counties now. But now that recovery has become a part of God's calling to us, all these different entities that God has given us over the years, we are now plugging in to recovery solutions. For instance, the coffee shop that was mentioned. We have now, I think it's maybe near 10 over the last few years of folks in recovery that we have hired through that program. One of the graduates from the rehab center, Lydia's house, when she was at her graduation point, she was dealing with past record restitution to pay and that kind of stuff. And they came to us and said, would you be willing to take a risk on a gal who has theft charges to work in your coffee shop? We said yes to that. She thrived so much, she was in charge of the cash register. I mean, here again, that ought to tell you the redemption
Amen.
in that. And at the end of her year, when she had to depart from the facility, one of the things that she shared with us, the whole ministry just fell in love with her. And she shared with us, I don't want to go back home. I want a fresh start in a new place. And a number of years earlier, God had given our ministry this really big house that we had no clue what we were going to do with. And slowly but surely over a few years, we were doing a few modifications and this kind of thing, but no real hurry. And as soon as we heard that word from her, God put it on our hearts. We knew what that house was for. And so we are currently in the process of creating a transition house there in Lynch. And particularly because there is a women's facility close by. There are no men's facilities in Harlan as far as treatment centers. So right now, that's primarily who we're ministering to is the ladies, because there are women's centers there in the county. Mm. And so one of the other entities of our ministry that we do have and have had for some time that's in Letcher County is a horse farm, and called the Stables at Creekside Glen. And what we are now doing as far as with recovery is we have been busing girls from the rehab center over to our horse farm. And you may have heard by now, horse therapy is a very growing enterprise as far as how it impacts. And with our ministry in particular, even before we started getting folks in recovery to the farm, we've also taken, we have once a year an autism event where autistic children come. And just the therapy of being able to brush and groom a horse would just blow your minds how impactful that is on a person's just joy, just the joy in their life. And currently with the group that we've got busing over to the horse farm right now, we've got one gal who's in recovery. She's about ready to move on to her next phase. And she asked the people there, that she asked the staff there if she could stay one more day. Because we take them every Monday. And she was going to leave on this next Monday. And she talked them into letting her stay till Tuesday so she could get one more run out at the horse farm. So that ought to tell you a little bit of how impactful that has been. And part of, I understand with our meeting today is how do faith-based entities, how can we impact that culture? And basically, I didn't realize it at first, but when I see all these pebbles in the water, so to speak, and all the things that we've been able to do in recovery, that was God's way of showing me this is how you change the culture, is if you will reach out to that addiction community. And God has blessed us in a number of ways. I could probably tell you more and more stories. We've actually, even though our transition house, we're getting real close. We're not quite done with all of its renovations yet. But we've already helped, I think it's about 10 ladies in recovery. And the vision that we have is once they get out of treatment, they need housing, they need a job, and they need to get, and have a helpful bubble, so to speak, to get them back on their feet again. And we've had over 10 that we've been ministering in that form of fashion already. And the first gal that I mentioned, who got the job at the coffee shop, I'll kind of close with that. In this past year, she is officially now a homeowner. She has purchased her own home and will be getting married next month. God's given me, I get to perform the wedding for her. But just to see where God has brought her and continuing to thrive and for her to thrive in that. So I'll be glad to answer any questions at the end. I'm going to zip it and sit back down.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. You both really highlighted the role of hope. If there's a quotient of despair and we never see that it's possible to do more, and you all are making that possible. I really appreciate that. James, will you tell us a little bit about your work at Fahi? Or
James is back here.
okay, wait, James is over there. Sorry. Went in the wrong direction.
No, that's okay.
I'm doing so well. Watch your cord. There's a cord right there. And for those of you watching at home, I'm not sure where our tech person went, and I'm not sure what you're seeing. It
I
might.
don't have a power.
Okay, well, very good. All right, well,
Do you have or do not have?
I do not have.
does
one.
not have. It's okay.
Somehow I cannot stop.
Okay. Okay.
So, I've worked with Pastor T. We've never met in person. We've only talked on the phone for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I was excited when I saw you were going to be here today. But with Fahi, as the project management work that I do, is worked around employment opportunities for people in recovery. So it's getting out in the community, and you talk about stigma, and you talk about getting buy-in to have companies bring people on. I've had a great opportunity of seeing of 39 we placed in a 2-year period, 15 of them were hired on full-time with either the employer they did their internship with or by another company that saw their potential and they moved on. And it's, to me, when we talk about the community's involvement and the church's involvement, it's everybody's got to understand that everybody's family's affected. And being able to get down on that granular level and say, hey, I can admit freely that I've had substance use disorder in my family. And knowing people in the community, be able to talk to people in the community from coming over from Hazard to Harlan or from Letcher County over into Harlan. We know people there, but we've seen the benefit of your organization taking apart and saying, we want to help this individual. And giving multiple individuals opportunities to learn job skills that they can move on to. You know, first home, getting married. I mean, what better story can you paint of someone's persistence and y'all giving them the opportunity? And I think that's with project management from the Fahi side and working with people in recovery, it's giving them that chance. And understanding, are they all going to be successful? No, not everyone's going to be successful. But the greater good outweighs the few that aren't successful. So that's all I would like to say about project management and the recovery work that we have done. And I'll take any questions afterwards.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Did you say what Fahi, does everybody know what Fahi is? Everybody's, okay, I see some yesing and some knowing.
You're
So,
a February.
I know, right, so Fahi is the Federal Appalachian Housing Enterprises Group that has done incredible development work all across Appalachia, and we're very, very grateful for the work. And I know that if you have special projects, so this is one of the reasons we get together for a meeting like this, is if you have a project that you think you could benefit from some expertise, whether it be training, or whether it might be connections to these job training programs, or some funding sources that you may not have thought of, please don't hesitate to reach out to Fahi. They have done some incredible, creative, unbelievably interesting work for agencies as small as just a few people, all the way up to giant corporations. And so it's been a game changer, absolute game changer. Well, we have another person on our thing. Is Tessie here? Where's Tessie? Oh, there she is, right here. Come forward. Tell us all about the good work at EKCEP.
Absolutely. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm following some really good speakers here. But I am Tessa Turner. I am the Special Populations Project Manager with EKCEP. And one of the roles that I fill with that position is I am the SITE, Strategic Initiative for Transformational Employment Program Director. What we do at SITE is we work with individuals who have battled addiction in the past. They're in recovery. They either are in a treatment program or have received one, and they're ready to get back into the workforce. So the big thing that we have to offer is we cover all 120 counties in the state of Kentucky. I have 20 job entry and retention support specialists and success coaches that are strategically placed across the state. They actually kind of align with all of the workforce development areas. If you guys are familiar with EKCEP, of course, we're here in Eastern Kentucky, you know, there's 10 workforce development boards in the state of Kentucky. So we're strategically placed within all of those. And what we do is we meet individuals where they are. Our referrals come from treatment facilities. They could come from church, faith-based programs. They could come from MAT programs. They could come from drug court. They could come from corrections. They could come from REPA. So they can self-refer. So basically, it only takes 3 things to qualify for our program. And one is that they have battled addiction in the past. 2 is that they are either in a treatment program and have completed one. And 3, they're in recovery. And what we do, our job is to bridge that gulf between coming out of treatment and getting back into the workforce. And what we found when we do that, the thing that makes us really special is it's not a short term for us. We have been able to take that referral, meet them where they are, come up with an individualized career plan. So everybody's different. We don't have a cookie cutter. There's not a specific plan that everyone gets. We don't do specific services for everyone. We basically take that individual, what have they done in the past? You know, what worked for them and what didn't, you know, what's on their background, what isn't, you know, what's their heart's desire? Because that's one of my, when I was in the field doing this work before managing the program, my favorite question to ask was, if we could take everything away, we live in a perfect world, right? No backgrounds, we don't worry about that. What would you want to do? And then together we plot that course. So that's basically what we do. So now, to all of our people, you know, we develop a career pathway. I guess that's what I should say. It's not, we get people jobs early on because most of our individuals say, I gotta have a job. Yeah, that's my next step. I gotta get some money coming in. That's okay. We help them get that job, but it doesn't stop there. Okay, we help them get that. So if they tell me, I eventually want to go back to school, I want to get my bachelor's degree in social work. So we're going to say something like, well, you know, have you ever thought about peer support? Have you thought about, you know, being a mentor? And if they say, hey, that's a good idea. So that's something that we're able to help. we can help them get that certification. We can help them find a job and use that certification and develop the skills and develop the experience that they need. Then we can help them get in touch with the local college, and we can help them through the FAFSA process, and we can help them, jump all the hoops they need to do to get back to school so they can work and go to school, and we continue to follow them. So that's basically how our model works, is we lead that individual from entering the workforce to building that career that we all want and that we all love and that we all are happy with and that we can sustain ourselves. It's not, there are a lot of jobs, and the culture has really changed for us because I've been working with special populations for almost 10 years now. And I have gone from, say, please, visiting employers for 10 times, taking cups of coffee, learning about their business, building relationships, give our people a chance. You'll never be sorry. They're vetted. We know everything about them. We're with them. We walk this walk with them. Now we've kind of gone to get a phone call with you. Do you have anybody you can send us? And then I have to say, or my staff has to say, well, if we have someone that meets their career goals, and sometimes they'll even say, it doesn't matter. We just need, we're like, no, that's not how the program works, because it has to be a fit. We have a point that we work both sides. We work with the individual developing their path, and then we make sure that this employer, we have to understand every employer in our area. We have to understand their needs. We have to understand what their culture looks like, what the environment looks like, what's their hiring processes. Are they even going to be open to our people? Because we don't want to set them up. You want to cause a disappointment. We don't want to get someone excited about a job and an application and an interview for HR to just say, well, we're sorry. We don't hire. So it's our job. We're tasked with finding the right fit. So I explain to people like working a puzzle. We take that individual and we build their individual pathway. And we're so fortunate because our funders have allowed us to have funding that allows us to remove barriers to work. Now, we do not provide blanket support services. We don't do it. Everybody that comes to us doesn't get the same thing. We work with two individuals in the same recovery center, but they may get two completely and totally different types of services based on what their plan is. But what we do is we remove barriers to work. So we help them find a job. And if there's a barrier that's going to keep them from going to that job, we're able to remove that. Then we can help train and develop and mentor them to a better job. And even when they're working, life's not always a bed of roses for any of us. So even once they've started to work, as issues arise, if things happen, we can remove barriers so that they can maintain and retain that employment. So I guess our key phrase is we work really hard to help people gain and maintain sustainable employment. And we have some wonderful partners, CORE, Kentucky Opioid Response Effort, Department of Justice, ODCP. We have wonderful, funders who allow us to do this great work. And we have so many great partners across the state. Goodwill, your Goodwills, your Addiction Recovery Cares, Isaiah House, Oxford House, treatment facilities, our drug courts. I mean, we work with so many different, just recently went to Reset Ministries in Northern Kentucky. Wonderful. I toured 3 of their places yesterday in Newport, and they have a wonderful program. Their people come in and they have choices of programs that they can do. And when they leave there, they have a job, they have a car, they have $1,000 in their bank account. It's like they have these certain, they help them. It's not just recovery housing. It's literally transitional housing. And that's what we do. We partner with all those agencies to offer that workforce piece, because EKSEP is a workforce investment board. We have business service teams, so we're already embedded in the workforce community. So that gives us a little bit of a leg up when we're helping people find employment. But, and to best describe what we do, I want to give you one success story, and then I'm going to step down and let someone else have time to talk. So the way our program works, we had a referral from drug court, a young man who was in the last stages of drug court, but still had obligations he had to meet. Okay, but he needed a job because that's part of the requirement. And when we met, he said, I've always wanted to be a lineman. That's been, I've always wanted to do that. And I said, well, let's see if we can get you in the lineman program. Can't go to college. I've been a couple times. I owe money. They won't let me back in. I said, well, have you thought about potentially, doing a earn while you learn, and on the job training? If we could find somebody. He said, oh, I would love it. So this young man went from having no job, having no vehicle, having no education, having, basically, came out of jail doing the drug court, to keep from having to be in jail, to now he is actually a lineman, but he's not just a lineman, he's a foreman. He has 12 men under him and he has 2 trucks. So I have and we're, by the way, we have a table out front in the main lobby where you guys came in. So stop by and see us because he is featured in our 2-year report as one of our success stories. So that is an example of what we do. And to finish that off, I think we have been so successful because we also are involved with a program called the Kentucky ERN, which is the Kentucky Employer Resource Network, which it falls under our site umbrella as well. And that is when we have success coaches that are placed on site with employers. So they are outside the HR, they're outside the actual business of that employer, but they're there on site for any employee that works for them when they just run through a rough patch. They can go to the success coach and say, hey, I'm going through a divorce. We just had one car. So now I'm 15 minutes late every day because I'm catching a ride from my neighbor and they're always late and I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. So we have someone on site that can help that person navigate that. And then, of course, if that person happens to have addiction past or recovery past or whatever, then they're handed off strictly, they'll have off to our site team who can work with them as well. And then as we place people at employers that have success coaches, then they have that natural support there, which we all need. You know, there's someone sitting there that, you know, you can always go to. So that's what you guys have talked about, a network, and it takes a network. It takes a village. It literally does. And it needs to be not just a network, but it needs to be an interlocking network. And that's what I've been thinking about lately. There's so many programs out there. There's so much. So there's funding for this and there's funding for that. And there's this programs to do this and programs to do that. But, you know, we've got to all come together like this. And we got to take all those, we got to do this. We got to kind of lace those together so that nobody falls through. We don't just catch the people that are falling in our nets, but that we're catching everyone because we built this network. So, and again, we're out front, so please stop by and get some information. If you know anyone who is in need of our services, we'd love to work with them, and we're excited to get started on our 3rd year.
Tessa Turner. So obviously, the largest and one of the most longest serving groups of folks who have come together in communities to support addiction recovery is AA. So we'll turn it over to the two of you to bring us a word. Do you need to be off camera or?
No, but that's just being broadcast to the offsite people.
Yeah, right.
There is a video in the TF.
Oh, yeah, right.
If that's possible.
Go.
That 4 minutes.
Everybody, I'm James C. Can't give you my last name, but I can personally, but I can't publicly. So I represent the Cooperating with Professional Community Committee of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous has a presence in over 180 countries. And we are nationally, internationally woven together. And Area 26 is the state of Kentucky. We have a few outside groups in Metropolis, Illinois, one in Tennessee, and one in Clarksville, Indiana. So in our committee, we try to link people to resources and help stay sober. We live in 24-hour segments, turning our will and lives over to a higher power of your own understanding. And that can be God, it could be the Lord, it could be whatever you want it to be, as long as it's greater than yourself, and you stay sober that way. So these 24-hour segments help us remain sober and clean and change our lives. And Alcoholics Anonymous does help people. It helps rebuild their lives. All this stuff with the court systems seems to go away once you get sober. And we got a video on some of that that's coming out.
I think we're ready on the video. Okay. We can get that set up. Bear with me.
It is. I have a problem with this team. So hang on just a second.
In the 33 years that I've been in the corrections field, I've seen thousands of people in trouble because they made terrible decisions while drunk. It is well accepted that a large percentage of prisoners were intoxicated when their crimes were committed, and that many of these offenders return to prison for other crimes while under the influence. These gates behind me might just as well be replaced by a revolving door. It makes sense then that helping prisoners with drinking problems to stop drinking will greatly reduce the chance that they will return to prison. In my experience, Alcoholics Anonymous provides the best chance for inmates to stop drinking and to remain sober after their incarceration. Local AA groups and committees are ready to help alcoholic inmates in your facility recover from alcoholism. Alcoholics Anonymous is a worldwide fellowship of men and women who help each other stay sober. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. In the United States and Canada alone, there are some 60,000 AA groups and approximately 2 million worldwide individual members. Local groups can consist of a handful of people or even several hundred members. Groups meet on a regular basis and members share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. Members follow a 12-step program of recovery to stay sober. Groups also follow a set of 12 traditions that keep the group focused on their primary purpose, which is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety.
I think an AA member wants to come inside the walls of the prison because for many of them, they understand that they probably are lucky that they're not within those walls of the prison because of their alcoholism. And they want to give back, and I think that kind of commitment and dedication and giving helps them stay sober.
AA members and groups make a strong effort to reach out to others who are suffering from alcoholism. Members meet with professionals, visit alcoholics who need help, whether they are in the hospital, at home, or wherever they may be, and also go to institutions to help groups of people hear the AA message. AA members do this work with great enthusiasm because they know that nothing ensures their own sobriety as much as helping another alcoholic. In the corrections field, we can strengthen our criminal rehabilitation work by taking advantage of the help AA groups have to offer.
Inmates in prison who are practicing the 12 steps, even non-alcoholics who are practicing 12 steps, you see a difference in their behavior, a positive difference.
Correctional facilities can work with local groups or committees to bring AA meetings into the facility. The members who visit the institution will use a wide variety of shared experience taken from AA literature to set up and conduct the meetings. And they meet with administrators and officers to share their knowledge and to understand the rules and parameters of the.
I'm cutting it up there because it was not the 4-minute video, it was a different. So we clicked on the wrong video. They're very similar. So what's interesting, but it makes a great point. If you're a professional, then you might encounter people who have a drinking problem. AA World Services has a YouTube channel, and all of the videos directed to specific professionals are there, or they are on the AA.org website. And there are messages to treatment facilities, to corrections, to probation officers, to anybody who might encounter that might have a very a specific message. Very similar message. So Alcoholics Anonymous in your community and following a lot of great community, it does take a village, and we're just a part of that. So in some of those church basements, you might find an AA group or another 12-step fellowship group. But if you can encounter clients in your profession who may have a drinking problem or being diagnosed with alcoholism, alcohol use disorder, we are a resource that is free financially to send your clients to, and we would like to help. We would go to the hospital. I mean, I will I don't mind driving to Eastern Kentucky to talk about Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll do anything because it helps me as a member to be of service. It's a part of the program to give it away. We were just talking about that with Dr. Moody. It's a great paradox of AA that you got to give it away to keep it. And so the more I give, the more I get. It's Mother's Day in 1935 was on May 12th, this day, 87 years ago. A guy who had a spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, psychic change, or what's the new one?
Neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity changed in some drastic way. He got sober and he was trying to get his employment life back together, and he was in Akron, Ohio, and he made a decision on May 11th. Should I go into the bar or should I try to call these ministers on this wall with this payphone? And he got in through Reverend Tunks. He linked up with this guy and he went over to dinner. So Dr. Bob said, I'll give this guy 15 minutes. And 4 hours later, he had finally met somebody that spoke his language, and those two met. And so May 12th, 87 years ago today, you would think would be the birthday of Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's not. That's on June 10th, Dr. Bob's last drink, because as you know, in your business, relapse might be a part of this deal. So he didn't get sober right away. So Alcoholics Anonymous birthday is June 10th coming up. But today's a very special day for me. I think it's one of the most significant days in that golden thread that stretched through to my life here today. So I guess we have a lot of free literature. We have a QR code that you can scan to the Meeting Guide app, which is an app which I demonstrated today. I pulled up and I found of those 6,000 meetings or groups in the US and Canada, the nearest one at noon was in Corbin. So it's in this community. It's in a lot of communities. You can use the Meeting Guide app and you can direct your clients to the nearest AA meeting, to the nearest men's meeting, to the nearest women's meeting, to the nearest gay and lesbian meeting, to the nearest young people's group, and that kind of thing by using this app. So that's a very handy resource and a tool if you're a professional that might encounter people with drinking problems. We have a lot of literature and a lot of things that tell you what Alcoholics Anonymous can do to help you and the things that we don't do, which many of them already mentioned. We don't help you find a job, but I'm pretty sure that if you stop drinking, it'll help you find a job, right? But we do one thing and we do it well, and then these other great presenters do their one thing really well. So together we do pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sam T, and she's going to be off camera, so we're just going to let her stay right where you are and bring us a word about Al-Anon.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I am Sam T, and I get to sit here and look at you all because of our principle of anonymity. And we practice anonymity of radio, TV, and films. And anonymity in our 12th tradition tells us that anonymity is a spiritual foundation of all our principles. And in order to honor that anonymity with you all today, I sit here and I get to look at you. I have spoken at Al-Anon meetings before, and in preparing for this one, I've never spoken at a non-Al-Anon meeting before. And so there are different ways of speaking for a non-Al-Anon meeting. And in an Al-Anon meeting, as in an AA meeting, we just describe in a general way what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now when we tell our story, and we share our experience, strength, and hope. And to pick up where the AA just left off, and that wonderful blessed day when the Spirit visited Bill W. in the hospital that day. And Bill W. is in the big book, he talks about how the Spirit came into the room and he was there, a hopeless drunk. he'd been a hopeless drunk for years and years. And he said, because Lois, his wife, which is the founder of our Al-Anon program, had been talking to the doctor, and they said, you know, he overheard them talking, and they said, he's got to go to the asylum because there's no help for him. And so Bill, in his wisdom, spoke up and said, it's recorded that he said, God, if there is a God, reveal yourself to me. And I love this because the wind blew into the room where he was at. And I add a little bit to it, and I say, it didn't blow the curtains off the wall. It didn't blow the sheets off the bed. Bill said it blew through him. And isn't that a wonderful thing to have happen? When the spirit of the sacred one blows through us. And he was relieved of his obsession to drink. And so that was the way it was then, back in the late 30s. And the alcoholics, you know, they like to be in charge, recovery or not. And that's spoken as a true ally. They began to tell their wives after they began, Bill and Bob, they got to getting other people in recovery. And they'd meet and they'd talk about their recovery and what was helping them to stay sober. And they began to tell their wives, come go along with us. And this is a classic. Come go along with us and listen to us talk. You know,
Oh, boy.
how many of us love listen to us talk? And the wives began to go to the AA meetings. And for some years, it was, I think in the early 50s, before Lois and some of the other wives got together, and they said, you know, we've been making coffee and making cakes and carrying it to these meetings long enough. We need to start applying these principles to our lives to see if they won't make a difference for us. Well, you know, the first thing that we as Al-Anons encounter when we come into the rooms, we see that first step. And it says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. And you can hold it right there. I'm not powerless over alcohol. I've got a drinking problem, but he's sitting over there in the corner. So that's how that was. We still place that today. They come and, you know, we introduce them to that first step that our lives have become unmanageable. And it takes them a while to realize when they come into our rooms that, yes, indeed, they do have they don't have a drinking problem, but they have a problem with the disease of alcoholism. Alcoholism, we know in Al-Anon, and we'll tell your clients when they come to us that alcoholism is a family disease. And we have all been affected by the isms. We have them, I mean, we've got it up to here, the isms that your clients have when you get them. Their families have the isms up to here. And they have to come a few times before they begin to trust us and to begin to relate to us and know that something wonderful can happen in our lives because we come together. And they come and they listen to us, share our experience and our strength and our hope. And we tell in a general way what it was like and what happened and what it's like now. And what it's like now is that I no longer have to be angry and I no longer have to be so mad at him. I just want to kick him out of the house and then go look for him while he's gone. And, you know, we can't, just as the alcoholic can't live with the alcohol and he can't live without it, we can't live without the alcoholic. And so we do everything within our power to keep him, but we're trying to fix him all the time. And when I get in the rooms with these other Al-Anons and they show me that they have a similar experience, what they were trying to do was, I know that he needs to quit drinking and I know what it would take. And so the mornings when he gets up and he's on a dry drunk and nothing's going to please him, well, we think, well, today if I scramble his eggs, he'll be good. He'll have a good day. Well, that's the very day he wants them fried, you know. And the days that he gets up and it's raining today and he's all disgruntled, well, we think, well, if only the sun would come out. We try everything that's within our power. And that's when we get to those steps that says we admitted we were powerless. We were powerless. We were powerless. No, 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 no. Let me try just one more thing. If you talk to anybody in the Al-Anon rooms, you will find that it's no, 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 no. Let me try one more thing. If I'm smart enough, if I keep the house clean enough, if I stay home, and if I do everything at his beck and call, if I can only show him how much I love him, I can love him enough and he'll quit. No, he won't. Okay, I'm getting the finger over there. That's my
It's the-
I told her to do that.
It was a nice finger. It was a nice finger.
That's which one I will. But I think just briefly will tell you that we have a book here, and this is one of the real old ones, family groups, Al-Anon family groups. And it talks in here about when we talk as an Al-Anon speaker to a non-Al-Anon meeting. And it says that in order, when they told me that I could have the privilege, and I consider it a privilege very much so, to get to speak to you folks today, I found in our book here that it said, we first decide, are we going to speak or are we not going to speak? That's the first thing I had to decide. Second thing, had to decide what I'm going to say. I have no idea. I never have any idea. But you all gave me some ideas because I know because of AA, we are. You know, we got our program from AA. We work the same steps and traditions in Al-Anon with the people that you all send to us, and we help them with their steps. We work those same steps, except we've changed one word, and that where Al-Anon said, where AA tries to carry the message and help other alcoholics, we carry the message and help others. We help families and friends of alcoholics. And sometimes if you send people to us and in our rooms, they come to that first meeting, you know, and most time it's two different things. Sometimes they feel like they're at home. They come in and they find for the first time in their life somebody that they can relate to. They find a place where they can feel at home. And you'll hear us in our rooms say that. And then in other cases, it's people like me. I came to the room and I surely did not want to be there because my alcoholic, he was blue-eyed and freckle-faced and beautiful. And I wanted to be in that room where those alcoholic women were at. Because I knew that they'd have eyes for him, you know, because after all, I did. And I didn't want to be in the Al-Anon room. And I sat there for a long time before I realized that what is wrong with me, and there's something wrong with me, and it's my thinking and my trying to fix what's wrong with my alcoholic's life. And so because my time is out, I could talk all day about that. But for pity and compassion on you, I'll hush. Just know that when you send them to us, and we will love them, and we will teach them, if they'll stay with us long enough, we will teach them how to replace that anger and that disappointment and this irritability that they don't even know they have because they've become disappointed and disillusioned in their relationships because he loves alcohol more than he loves me. And my heart is broken, my spirit is broken, and I come to the rooms, and Al-Anon will teach me, if I stay there, they'll teach me how to replace all that guilt, that shame, that resentment with love and compassion. There was this, that my alcoholic, he's passed away now, but he had 5 years sobriety in AA, and we moved to New Orleans, and he didn't get drunk right away, but he did get drunk. And he was so brokenhearted because he got drunk. And he told me one day, he said, Sam, I don't know that I'll have another sobriety in me. I know I'll have another drunk, but I don't know if I'll have another sobriety. And I was so mad at him. I thought I moved all the way from Kentucky down here to you just to get drunk. And I was mad at him. And my sponsor in Al-Anon, which we have sponsors too, if we're going to work those steps, she told me, she said, Sam, when you start to the meeting tonight, you go over to him and you give him a kiss on the top of the head and tell him that you'll be back. And shut up all that other stuff that you've been telling him. Because I could fuss, you know, and I could try to run the show. And I didn't want to kiss him. And I didn't want to tell him that I'd be back in a little while. I wanted to slap him around and tell him, you know, what I needed. But I didn't, because sponsors can be real bossy. And they know what we don't know because they see us from that place over there, and all I see is what I see. But anyway, I did that little kiss on top of the head. And I sat with him when he cried and said he didn't know if he could ever get sober again or not. But with the grace of God, good orderly direction, he did get sober again. And when he passed away, he was sober. And for this, I'm eternally grateful for AA. I'm just, there's nothing that we can do to get them sober. And we try real hard, that we can't and God can, if only we'll let him. So thank you for hearing me today.
We have a few minutes for questions, so thank you all to our presenters for being both inspiring but also brief. So, that leaves time for you all to ask some questions or to share some conversation that you'd like to reflect upon if you'd like to. And that's also true of those of you who are maybe watching online. We've got a tech person who's going to help me. If you type things in the chat, we will feed them to the group, and you can ask for the whole panel, or you can ask any individual who may have sparked your interest. Yeah.
How long is the Springs of Life program?
It's a 9-month, it's a
9 months?
9-month program, yes.
Other questions? Oh, good. I've got some of mine. Excellent. I'd like to hear from each of you, if you wouldn't mind, just from your context and the communities you work in. Here, a lot of us are here as organizations, but all of us are individuals. All of us have families and contexts, and most of us here will have somebody who's been involved in addiction, but we go to bridge clubs, we're in churches, we have all sorts of things. What bit of advice, what encouragement would you offer to all of us as individuals? What one thing might you suggest we do as individuals to promote this change of culture, to promote recovery, to be a community of care? What advice would you, and you might think about this from your perspective as well, because all of you are in professions and in places where that might be important. One of the things that I've noted, and while you're thinking, I'll give you a minute. One of the things that I've noted in my work is that if we don't speak out loud, people will imagine what's happening. In other words, if you're not having that experience, it's not as though it doesn't exist for you. It's that you begin to make up your own story about it. And that story, as we found out so often about addiction and about the hope of recovery, is not entirely accurate. And it's also not owned by a person who could tell you how, right? One of the things that I think churches get into, and pastors, you know how this is, well, there's a problem on both sides. And Terry and I were talking about this, which is that there are some people who, want nothing to do because of their high moral character to do with anybody who might have been addicted related, right? That's preachers preach about addiction all the time, but it isn't the good way, right? Don't do it. If you do it, you're out. But on the other hand, we've got folks who, because of some of that and the history of that, which they're not wrong about, they don't see every organization as a safe place, right? So you can't assume that they see your organization, whether it's faith-based or not, as a safe place, unless there's some evidence to suggest that it might be. Churches, we have a responsibility, just like anybody else, to prove that we are a safe place. One of the ways that I try to do that, and I tell this is my advice if I had one, if I were the type of person to give advice, which of course I'm not, but if I were, I might say the one thing you could do is speak up and say yes, right? Speak up. Don't hide this problem or whisper about somebody's recovery. Celebrate it if you're allowed. Celebrate it if you can. Find ways to talk about recovery success stories. Find ways to make sure that your politicians know what you think, right? That's about changing the culture. It's going to take all of us, and part of that is government, part of that's money, part of that's churches, part of that's organizations. I'd like to hear what some of the rest of you might think about that. What would you do? What advice would you give? You're up, Alec.
Okay.
Because you're close.
I would say probably awareness, becoming aware of what's going on. I mean, obviously most of us are very aware of addiction and things, but it's mostly about what people are already doing and how you might go about supporting those organizations. Because I think that's probably the biggest hurdle is just resources. It's 3 of us, and we do all kinds of stuff, and but we rely, there's a couple volunteers that we have. And if it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't be able to work as well as we do. And so, and so it's really awareness of what people are already doing, and maybe instead of competing with them, partnering with them. If that makes sense.
Great, thank you.
That was a great analogy that you gave. So I was thinking about connection, and like this particular panel I learned a lot about, and so my background is that I spent 30 years in uniform, traveling around, moving to a new community every 3 years. And so what I learned along the way is that I need to know the resources in that community when I get there. So I get to a new place and I don't know where to take somebody to get detoxed safely. And I don't know where the sober living housing is, and I don't know how to help them get a job because I'm new too. And so it's a really bad idea for me to find out, because Alcoholics Anonymous does one thing: we have a single purpose. And a lot of people come there for a variety of reasons that aren't that single purpose we can't help you with. So it's too late when you need something that we don't provide if I don't already know where to point you to. So I need to, like, us networking here, this is really important. And something that my little AA group does, as you know from this conference, it's not a secret that there's more addiction than alcoholism in most communities. And that's true in my little community in Elizabethtown too. So what we've done in our little group is we have literature for other 12-step groups. And it's hard, but we've thought about it ahead of time before it happens, because it inevitably is going to happen again. That when somebody comes to that room looking for help because the drug court sent them to just any 12-step program and misled them to our group who deals with alcoholism. Now I have phone numbers in my phone of active members of Narcotics Anonymous that work a good 12-step program, and active members of Al-Anon family groups. And I have literature and meeting schedules, so I can much more lovingly point them and get them to the right lifeboat, right? Because it's misleading for me to tell you that we can help you with your housing or your employment or we know anything about drug addiction. We help you not drink today. But as an individual, I happen to know where to get you some help. And so I think that's really, really important to network like that.
Thank you. Thoughts, Terry?
Kind of what comes to mind for me, you know, when we think about recovery and those we're wanting to help, we want to provide solutions to bring change to their life. But I've come to find, before I can really help someone else change, I've got to tell them about me first. And a lot of times it has to do with my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just give a personal example on that. I come from a home. I've not been an addict myself, but I come from a home where my dad was. And I had a very bitterness toward that in my early years of growing up. And God had to teach me a compassion.
Mm.
And now, you know, where at one time I would probably say I hated that culture, now I'm headlong. I'm headlong in it. So there's change, you know, and I have to be willing to reevaluate my thinking on it. And I can't, what I'm getting ready to say, I can't say I'm the originator of this, but a pastor once said, he said, there's two kinds of people. There's people that God lives in, and there's people that God died for.
Mm. And
even those that we may not connect with or consider a part of our particular culture, Jesus still died for them. And if Jesus loved them enough to die for them, then shouldn't I love them too? So that's my word for them.
Jump right on in.
Because I am Al-Anon and I know a little bit about Al-Anon, we are, of course, you know, a family fellowship. And we know that in Al-Anon that the family situation is bound to improve if just one person gets better.
That's right.
And so, people come to our meetings and they'll come for maybe 5 or 6 meetings, and then they'll say, he's acting different since I've been coming to Alamo. He's still drinking, but he's acting different. And so it's something that happens. It's a spiritual program. It's not anything that we can make happen. It's just something that we are assured that the family situation is bound to improve. But just one person gets better, and that one person is. So I think that's where it all starts for us. And it catches.
Thank you.
What I think is, just kind of my personal opinion, but, when I get better, everyone around me gets better.
Yes.
And, when the, spirit comes in, of your understanding, that might be, I tend to get better and those around me get better, but when we're sick on the same day, is when it gets really bad. So try not to get sick on the same day.
That's good advice.
I'm gonna use that term in here, but, what I had an old timer tell me one time, he said, if you'll just make Alcoholics Anonymous the most important part of your life will change. And I wasn't there really to change my life. I was there to get my wife back because she'd done gone. And I went through that, and she didn't come back, but my life changed. And I did make AA the most important. He told me to eat it, live it, and sleep it. I had no idea what that meant, but I kept coming back, like Dr. Mills said earlier. Kept coming back until I figured part of that out. And that doesn't mean, I don't have bad days. My thinking is a problem. It's up here. Drinking was just a symptom of my disease. And I realized I had a disease that's trying to kill me and tell me that I'm okay. My life started to get better because I had these 12 steps that we implement into our life, and each step has a principle behind it. We implement those kind of principles into your life. First one, being honest about the disease. Second, having hope, having faith, turning your will and life over to a higher greater. Courage, and you do a moral inventory of your life, and you share that with another person. You share the language of the heart with another person, what you're going through. That fear leaves you, you gain courage. You share that, you have integrity because you share it with another human being, and with God, and with yourself. And then we become willing to change. We start identifying our character defects and go down and ask God to do those things. Not your power greater. And you gather some humility when you do that. And then we have brotherhood, self-control, perseverance, spirituality, and service. And when you implement all of those 12 into your life, I guarantee your life will change.
I'm gonna make sure Tessa had.
All right, so as far as the individual, the addict or the alcoholic or just the person that's having issues for themselves, I think what I found in my past several years is that my advice to them be never stop dreaming. You're always worthy. No matter where you are in your life, you have a right to dream. Not just settle, not just what I have to take, or I'm in this position, so I've got to do what I have to do, but dream. And I think we did some success story videos not too long ago, and one of the young men that was on the video, he made a comment that really, I wish I could turn a phrase. But he said they were able to do this for me, and that was my first hope shot.
Hope shot. What a
So he
great,
called it a hope shot. He said it was my first hope shot.
first hope shot.
And he said, when I got that first hope shot, I realized it was possible. So I just want to challenge everybody in here today to be a hope shot for someone.
Well said. Thank you. Last word.
Well, when we think about the culture and, everybody's story is different. What led each person to that point in their life is different. But if we as a whole are gonna make that culture change, then we have to be there whether they're having their good days or their bad days. That, when you said that, that's exactly what was run through my mind, because, you have the friend that's having a bad day. Well, if you can be that support that keeps them on their path of sobriety from whatever they're striving for, then, you know, you've set that culture of you're gonna be that rock for them. And you know they're having a bad day. But you also know their story and how you're helping them change their story. But that's the way I look at it when I think about the culture piece of it.
Will you give me your applause for these fine colleagues and all the work? Here's my takeaway, and then you're free to go, which is read up, show up, and say yes. Read up, show up, and say yes. Go in peace.